Welcome back to WD08 Flyer Part 2. Take a look at my sample again, and we're going to be working on this part, this little text area at the top. And we'll make two text boxes. We'll make one for this one and one for the bottom. And just so you're aware, I'm going to use Arial, and then I'm actually going to make it like about 85% narrower. This is more of a condensed font, but I just wanted to use a font that everybody has so everything can be somewhat consistent. So we're just going to use Arial, we'll use bold, we'll use regular, and then we'll condense it like about 85%. And I'll show you how to do that. So we're going to do these two text boxes because these are easier. Or maybe I'll do this one and then I'll do this one. And we do have some bullets and some spacing issues to deal with, which you should know how to do already. So I'll start with this one at the top. That's the easiest one. So I'm going to go to my other Word document, and I'm just going to go to the top, and I'm going to copy this Mass Mutual area here. I don't even need that last area. I'm just going to copy, Control C, and then I'm going to go back to my other document, and I'll just make a text box again. We have to do Insert and go all the way over here to Text Box. And we're going to make the text box about 4.5 inches wide. So, and I drew a text box. You can also insert a text box, but it's okay if you draw one as well. And I'm gonna click this so it's about 4.5 wide. And even before there's anything in there, I'll make sure it snaps. So that's about right. There's almost about a 1/4 inch in between here. That should be fine. And I could even before I do anything, I could even turn off these margins. Since this stuff is shown, I'm going to turn off the margin, and I'm also going to make sure that I go to Shape Options and I turn off the line, and I make no line there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in here. I'm going to do Control V, and I'll paste that text in there, and there it is, and it's fine. And now I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go to my Home tab, and I'm just going to put it in Arial, and just so I could remember what size this is. And if you have these extra returns at the end, you could delete them. We don't need ones at the end. I guess it'll keep the last one there, but you don't need any extra returns. And it's all Arial. I'm going to make this one about Arial, I think 28 point. And I'll make it bold. And it doesn't look like the sample yet. And then this one, I think is going to be 16 point. But what I'm going to do, and you can see it gets a little longer here, so I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all this text here, and we're going to make it like a dark blue, like this color. And you could do that. You could go down here and just kind of use this, either one, the medium or dark blue. I'll use the dark blue. And another thing we could do here, we haven't done this yet, I'm going to go to Font. I'm going to open up this little font area here, and I'm going to use Advanced. And I'm just going to change the scale to 85, and I could just type in 85 because it only does 90, but I'm going to type in 85 and hit OK. And what it'll do is make it a little more narrower, and that's what I want to do for that, and that's all I need to do for that. And every time we use Arial, we're going to make it narrow like that. We're going to make it a little more narrow. So that's all. I'm not sure about the positioning in the top. I have to look at my sample to see where it is. It looks like it's the C kind of lines up at the top of the picture, so I could, I'm pretty close. So actually where I have it is pretty close. So remember, this box again is about 4.5 wide. And what I'm going to do next is make another. I'll make my text box over here. Now I'm going to go to Insert. Okay, so I'm going to choose the simple text box again. And again, depending where your cursor is, it might give you an option to draw one or to actually select one. So I'm going to bring this down here, and I'm going to make it the same width as that stripe on the side. And then I'm even going to put a little margin, so it's going to kind of look like this. So we're going to almost have like a 0.2, it's almost like a 1/4 inch. We'll make it a little less so we have a little more room. But we're going to put kind of a margin on the side for all this information. So I'll go back here. Now, I didn't paste it in yet, but I should make it longer because there's more text that's going to go in here. So I'll make sure I have enough room. I'll go back to my other document, and the information that you're going to copy is basically all this stuff here. I'll copy this. Do Control C, and I'll go back to my other document, and I'll go here and I'll do Control V, and that'll paste in all the information. And I'm going to make it all Arial, so I could do Control A, which will take all the information, even the stuff that you don't see. And now you could right click to open up the mini toolbar. You could just go to the Home tab, and I'm just going to make it Arial, and I think it's going to be like 11 point to start. And this stuff here, and since it's all Arial, what I'd like you to do is do Control A again so that everything's highlighted, and then also make it all 85% again. You could go to Font, Advanced, and make it 85. because it's using kind of a condensed font. And then I'm going to make the top part bold. And I think 11 point will be okay. Okay, and then this part here is the red part. So I'll just give that a red color, just a basic red color. And then the other parts are going to be blue. So I'll use that same kind of dark blue color. And then down here it's dark blue. Now I did put an extra return in there, which you could leave there for now. But on this one, I'm just going to put a space before of like 12 points. So I could go over here and do a space before of 12 point. And then some of this stuff here, this one is actually, I think this one is, as far as our sizes, this stuff is like 14 point. These two date things are like 14. So I'll make them 14. And then this one down here is 12. And then this stuff here I think is 12 point as well. And if this part here with the web address, and if you need to take that away, we don't need it to have a hyperlink. You could if you could go in here, right click on it and just say remove hyperlink and just turn that off. We don't need a hyperlink there, so you can turn that off. But if this gets too long, this one can actually be 11 if it tends to, you know, if you need to make it a little bit smaller, you can. And I think this part from the sample is actually bold. And I think, again, I think this part is like 14 point on there. And again, let me check my sample quick. Yeah, that's a little bigger there. I think this stuff is like 14 points. So I'll go back there and I'll make sure I give you the instructions for doing that. And then I think both of these are 14. So I'll make sure these are 14. And then that other one, this could be like 11. And this application opens is actually the bold part. Same thing here. They actually made this. They made this part bold. So there's a lot of little changes in here, which is a little odd. But otherwise, that's pretty much it, except the one issue I have here is we still have the border. It has a background of white, so let's fix that. And again, if you're not seeing this over here, you would have to right-click and go on the edge. But I am, so I'm going to go to Text Options. I'm actually going to put my left margin, I'm going to go make it 0.2, and make my right margin 0.2, and take off the top and bottom margins. We don't need those. And then this is okay. I'm going to go back to Shape Options. I'm going to turn off the line, so there's no line. And I'm also going to go to Fill, and I'll turn off the fill. With no fill, you'll be able to see through it. So I'm going to move this up a little bit. I think this is okay. I'm going to move this, just drag this thing up a little bit. And you could get it, it doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, it's going up a little bit up there. It doesn't look exactly the same, but we're getting as close as we can since we're not using the exact same fonts. So I'm going to go back here and I'll just move this up just a little bit more, because we might have a little bit more space in between here, but that's okay. All right, so that looks okay. We have our information at the bottom here. We have our logo, and we'll try to line up the logo so it lines up with where that text is. And the last thing we're going to do is this area with the bullets. So I'm also going to click in here. I'll go to Insert, go to Text Box. I'll make another text box, and this one will also be about 4.5 inches wide. So I'll make that wide before I get started, and it should kind of snap to the border over there. And if it's not 4.5, make it 4.5, and I'll drag it down because I know we're probably going to need all this space here for this text box. I'll drag it up, you know, before we make it smaller, because it's going to have to be made smaller. And then I'm going to go back to my other document, and I'm going to copy all this information here. And I don't need that last return. And I'll do Control-C, and then I'll go back to this document, and I'll click here, and I'll do Control-V, and that pastes everything in here. Now this top line, I'm just going to highlight that, and I'll put that in my Arial, and I'll leave it 12 point. And I'll make it blue. And I'm not even going to bother making it narrow. You can make it narrow if you want, but I'm going to just leave it like that for now. Everything from open on down is actually going to be like a bullet list. So I'm going to highlight all that. I'll make it a bullet list. Now you can see when it makes it a bullet list, it indents everything. So you could click this so it goes back out to the indent. So it goes back out to the margin. And then a couple things I'm going to have to do here when it's all highlighted is I'm going to put a space before all these bullets so it spreads out a little bit. But before I do that, let me change the font. I'm just going to go Times New Roman. So we'll use a very basic font, which is pretty close to what I saw in there. So I'll scroll all the way down and find Times New Roman. And I'll make it 10 point, so that'll give us a lot more room. Might even be a little on the small side, might be like 10.5, but that's okay. I'm going to leave it 10 point right now. And I'm also going to do a space before. And also, before you give it a space before of 6 point, make sure that this is not checked. So uncheck that and hit OK. And there it's kind of spread out now, and that looks okay. I'm also, before I do anything with this stuff in here, and you know what, let me try, I think 10.5 is probably going to be better. I think that's going to look a little better, so we can make it 10.5. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn off the margin again. We don't need any margin over there. I'll make them all 0. And then also I'm going to go to Shape Options and I'm going to turn off the line so there's no line. And I think most of this looks pretty good for now. I think there's this free application for federal student aid, I think is like bold and has a dark blue on it. And I think everything else for the most part looks okay. These things here, these two things, you could try and move them out. Now if you try to move them out, they're going to turn into regular bullets, so I'll put them back. But you can just move them out so they line up with the text. Just going to change your indent. You could just drag on the ruler, drag the indents just so that the dash lines up with the letters, and then the the hanging indent lines up. It just stays where it is, about a 1/4 inch away. If you needed to check what that is, you could just go into your indents, and I'll tell you. You can see it's a left indent of a 1/4 inch, and then it's a 1/4 inch hanging. So you can see it's a 1/4 inch from where the other one is, and then it's a 1/4 inch from there. So it's a 1/4 inch in is where it starts, and it's a 1/4 inch from the bullet. And if I turn off these, you can see what it looks like so far. I'll take a look at my document, and I probably want to move this down, this eligibility criteria, this whole box. I'm just going to shorten a little bit and move it down a little bit. I'll check my sample one more time, see if I match it up, and it looks pretty good, I think. I think the other one has more space here, but I think that looks pretty good. And here's my version, and it's not bad for, 20 minutes putting together kind of a nice looking flyer. And obviously we looked at this one, but it's a nice flyer to look at. So I think that's it. I think that should be all you need to do with that. Once you did that, you made your first flyer in Word. You inserted images, you did bullet lists, you did shapes on here, you adjusted the text boxes. You got to do a lot of stuff on here. So make sure you save that. Then you should be done, and you could close up both of your documents.